Welcome to Mayhem CEDH, where questionable decks meet questionable pilots. For this week, we have a solid pod with players old and new, and the debut of our newest player to the channel, Wyatt. With that being said, let's check out the pod today. First, we have Wyatt on Thrasios Bruse Tarl Dawnwaker, a Sans Black midrange deck that capitalizes on Thrasios activations. Noah on Kraum Tymna Blue Farm, a fast deck that seeks to use its commanders for advantage and find a combo quickly. Cody on KCI Teshar, a combo deck that seeks to assemble a combo with its commander to quickly kill the table. And finally, Pilch on Rograkh Ikra Witherbloom, a Jund list that uses Rograkh's unique casting cost with synergies combined with powerful black card advantage to assemble a Witherbloom Apprentice combo. And now, with each pilot in their respective corner of the screen, let us begin. And for those of you in the Ames area, stick around to find out how you can get 10% off your next Mayhem Ames purchase. Cody draws and plays a Plains for turn. He casts a Soul Ring. He plays a Mox Opal. Cody passes. Pilch draws and plays a Command Tower. He casts an Ignoble Hierarch. He casts his commander, Rograkh, son of Rograkh. Pilch passes. Wyatt draws and plays a Polluted Delta. He passes. Noah draws and plays a Spire of Industry. He casts a Mox Diamond, discarding a land as it enters. Noah passes. Cody draws and plays a City of Traders. He casts an Aethersworn Canoness. He casts a Drannith Magistrate. Cody passes. Pilch draws and plays a Bayou. He casts a Wild Growth, enchanting his Bayou. He moves to combat and attacks Noah for 1. Noah takes the hit and Pilch passes. At the end of Pilch's turn, Wyatt cracks his Polluted Delta, paying a life and fetching up a Volcanic Island onto the battlefield. The turn moves to Wyatt. Wyatt draws and plays a Savannah for turn. Wyatt passes. At the end of Wyatt's turn, Noah exiles Simian Spirit Guide to help cast Intuition, targeting Cody. It resolves, and Noah fetches up a Ranger Captain of Eos, Rhystic Study, and Esper Sentinel. Cody gives Noah the Esper Sentinel to his hand, and the rest go to Noah's graveyard. The turn moves to Noah. Noah draws, plays an Esper Sentinel, and passes. Cody draws and moves to combat, attacking Pilch with Drannith and Aethersworn. Pilch takes the hit, and in his second main phase, Cody casts Ranger Captain of Eos. It resolves, and Cody fetches up an Esper Sentinel of his own. Cody passes. Pilch draws and moves to combat, attacking Noah with Rograkh. Noah takes the hit, and in his second main phase, Pilch casts Culling Ritual, not paying for Noah's Sentinel. In response, Cody sacrifices Ranger Captain, preventing his opponents from casting non-creature spells. Culling Ritual resolves, destroying everything with CMC 2 or less, and Pilch adds 5 green and 3 black. He casts his commanders, Rograkh, son of Rograkh, and Ikra Shidiki the Usurper. Pilch passes. Wyatt draws and plays a Birds of Paradise. He passes. Noah draws and passes. Cody draws and plays an Esper Sentinel. He also passes. Pilch draws and puts a Stomping Ground into play untapped, paying 2 life. He casts a Chrome Mox, not paying for Cody's Sentinel, imprinting Elvish Spirit Guide as it enters. He casts Carpet of Flowers. He moves to his second main phase and adds a black. He casts Diabolic Intent, sacrificing Rograkh. He searches up a card into his hand and passes. Wyatt draws and casts his commander, Thrasios, Triton Hero. He casts Crop Rotation, sacrificing Savannah, not paying for Cody's Sentinel. He fetches up a Gaia's Cradle onto the battlefield. Wyatt passes. Noah draws and plays an Underground Sea. He also passes. Cody draws and plays a Chromatic Sphere. He cracks Chromatic Sphere, adding a white and drawing a card. He casts Unexpectedly Absent, where X equals 0, targeting Pilch's Chrome Mox. It resolves, and Chrome Mox is put on top of Pilch's library. He moves to combat and attacks Noah for 1. Noah takes the hit, and Cody passes. Pilch draws and immediately moves to combat, attacking Noah with Ikra. Noah takes the hit, and in his second main phase, he adds a red through his carpet. He casts Infernal Plunge, sacrificing Ikra, not paying for Cody's Sentinel, and adding 3 red. He casts AdNaus. It resolves, and Pilch reveals a Dark Ritual, Birds of Paradise, Praetor's Grasp, Misty Rainforest, Jeska's Will, Verdant Catacombs, Peer into the Abyss, Turn the Earth, Corpse Dance, Ragavan Nimble Pilferer, Animate Dead, Deathrite Shaman, Marsh Flats, Witherbloom Apprentice, Goblin Welder, Razaketh the Foul-Blooded, Veil of Summer, Phyrexian Tower, Culling the Weak, City of Brass, Overgrown Tomb, Assassin's Trophy, Llanowar Elves, Crop Rotation, and decides to stop there. He recasts Chrome Mox, imprinting Razaketh as it enters. He plays a Phyrexian Tower. He casts Jeska's Will, targeting Cody, adding 6 red mana. He casts Ragavan, Nimble Pilferer. He casts Goblin Welder. It enters, and Pilch fetches up a Lion's Eye Diamond into his graveyard. He moves to discard and passes. Wyatt draws and plays a Boseiju, who endures. He casts a Seedborn Muse. It resolves, and Wyatt passes. Wyatt untaps with Noah, who draws, sighs, and passes. At the end of Noah's turn, Wyatt activates Thrasios, scrying 1 and revealing an Impulse into his hand. He casts Impulse, not paying for Cody's Sentinel. He looks at the top 4, puts 1 into his hand, and the rest onto the bottom of his library. The turn moves to Cody. Wyatt untaps with Cody, who draws and plays a Cavern of Souls, naming Cleric as it enters, and floating mana with City of Traders' ability on the stack. City of Traders is destroyed, and Cody casts his commander, Teshar, Ancestor's Apostle. He casts a Mox Amber. Teshar triggers, targeting Ranger Captain. In response, Wyatt casts Resculpt, targeting Teshar, not paying for Cody's Sentinel. Teshar is exiled, and Cody creates a 4/4 elemental token. Then, Ranger Captain enters, and Cody searches up a Hope of Ghirapur into his hand. At the end of Cody's turn, Wyatt activates Thrasios, scrying 1 and revealing a Breeding Pool onto the battlefield tapped. The turn moves to Pilch. Pilch draws and adds 2 green through his carpet. He casts Witherbloom Apprentice. In response, Wyatt activates Thrasios, scrying 1 and revealing a Lotus Petal into his hand. Still in response, Cody sacrifices Ranger Captain, keeping his opponents from casting non-creature spells. Pilch moves to combat and attacks Noah with Ragavan. Noah takes the hit, and Pilch creates a treasure token and exiles the top card of Noah's deck, which is a luxury suite. Noah sighs, and Pilch passes. Wyatt draws and casts a Lotus Petal, paying for Cody's Sentinel. He casts a Drannith Magistrate. He casts Kinnan, Bonder Prodigy. He casts Finale of Devastation, where X equals 2. In response, Pilch casts Assassin's Trophy, draining the table for 1, not paying for Cody's Sentinel, destroying Seedborn Muse. Then Wyatt fetches up a Gilded Drake onto the battlefield. It enters, targeting Witherbloom Apprentice. In response, Pilch casts Veil of Summer, draining the table for 1. Pilch draws, Gilded Drake fizzles, and is destroyed. Wyatt passes. Noah draws, accepts his fate, and passes. Cody draws and casts a Benevolent Bodyguard. He sacrifices it, giving his elemental protection from red. He moves to combat and attacks Pilch for 4. Pilch chumps with Witherbloom, and in his second main phase, Cody casts Hope of Ghirapur. Cody passes. At the end of Cody's turn, Pilch sacrifices Ragavan to help cast Corpse Dance, not paying for Cody's Sentinel, returning Witherbloom Apprentice to the battlefield. Notably, he couldn't actually do this because Ragavan would be the top creature card, but no one caught it, so we'll continue. Pilch draws and adds 2 black through his carpet. He casts Dark Ritual, not paying for Cody's Sentinel, draining the table for 1, adding 3 more black mana. He casts Culling the Weak, sacrificing Goblin Engineer, draining the table for 1, and adding 4 more black mana. He casts Praetor's Grasp, draining the table for 1, targeting Noah. He searches Noah's deck for a card, exiles it face down, and Noah shuffles. This is when the table reminds him that Drannith Magistrate is still in play. Determined, Pilch casts Demonic Consultation, naming Chain of Smog. He exiles the top 6, then exiles to the second to last card before he finds it. He casts Chain of Smog, draining the table for 1, targeting himself. In response, Wyatt casts Mindbreak Trap, not paying for Cody's Sentinel, exiling Chain of Smog. His plans thwarted, Pilch moves to combat and attacks Noah with Witherbloom. Noah takes the hit, Witherbloom is exiled from Corpse Dance, and Pilch passes. Wyatt draws and plays a Mystic Remora, paying for Cody's Sentinel. He passes. Noah draws and finally finds a land, which is a Misty Rainforest. He cracks it, paying a life, and fetches up a Volcanic Island onto the battlefield. He casts Dark Ritual, not paying for Cody's Sentinel or Wyatt's Remora, adding 3 black mana. He casts Rite of Flame, not paying for Wyatt's Remora, adding 2 red mana. He casts Dockside Extortionist. In response, Pilch cracks his treasure token for a green. Dockside enters and creates 6 treasures. He casts Peer into the Abyss, not paying for Wyatt's Remora, targeting himself. In response, Wyatt exiles a blue card from his hand to cast Force of Negation, targeting Peer. In response, Noah hard casts Deflecting Swat, not paying for Wyatt's Remora, targeting Force of Negation. Deflecting Swat resolves, changing the target of Force of Negation to Deflecting Swat. Force fizzles and Peer into the Abyss resolves. Noah draws half his deck and loses half his life. He casts Silence, not paying for Wyatt's Remora. Silence resolves, and Noah doesn't pay for Wyatt's Remora from here on out. He casts a Mana Crypt. He casts a Mana Vault. He casts a Soul Ring. He casts an Arcane Signet. He casts a Talisman of Dominance. He casts Chain of Vapor, bouncing Dockside to his hand. He copies it, sacrificing a land and bouncing Mana Crypt to his hand. He copies it again, sacrificing a land and bouncing Soul Ring to his hand. He copies it once more, sacrificing a land and bouncing Mana Vault to his hand. He recasts Mana Crypt, Mana Vault, and Soul Ring. He recasts Dockside, creating 6 more treasures. He casts Geistwave, bouncing Drannith Magistrate to Wyatt's hand. He casts Underworld Breach. He cast Brain Freeze with a storm count of 18, all targeting himself, milling the rest of his deck. With Thassa's Oracle and mana available through Dockside to recast Thassa's Oracle from the graveyard with Underworld Breach, the table sees the writing on the wall, and Noah wins the game. For those of you in the Ames area who stuck around, come to Mayhem Comics in Ames this week and ask for the YouTube discount. You'll be asked the question, who won? Answer correctly and get 10% off your purchase. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to catch future videos, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.